Hi guys, hope you're well. Welcome to Thursday's DOdaily, Thursday Thoughts, your live questions and answers. Thank you for those who've been in touch, sent me some questions. Quite a relevant theme today. I've been talking a little bit this week about trying to sort my own sort of eating habits out and lose a bit of weight, a bit too much overindulgence in the lockdown period, trying to do other things and enjoy myself a little bit too much to replacing some of the activity I'm missing. But asked for some questions today through the Instagram DOdaily 2020 this morning, as I tend to do. I posted what we're going to do for the day, and I asked the guys to post me some questions, and they've done that. And the theme seems to have been related to this sort of food, nutrition, sort of what to take before and after running, that kind of thing. So didn't do that on purpose, but it's worked out that people have asked questions. So I've got 3 questions today that I'm going to sort of try and answer and advise on. I'm going to use some of the information I've read and offer my opinion. I'd just like to kind of start on that by saying a few years ago, before I started running, the reason I started running was actually to try and lose some weight. I've told this story many times, sort of personally and through the group, but I basically decided to try and change my habits and my eating habits. We all know what to eat. We all know what's good for us and what's bad for us. And without overcomplicating things, I just set myself a small target to start with. I wanted to lose 2 stone by the end of the year. It was actually March, April time. And by just deciding to take 3 things out of my diet, which was chocolate, pastries and bread, I managed to lose that 2 stone quite quickly without really changing too much else. The problem I did have after a couple of months, I couldn't maintain that. Everything I'd been doing wasn't working anymore, and I was getting a little bit sort of stuck and didn't know where to go, and that's where the running actually came in. So I started running, and in all honesty, through that period, I've not managed my diet as good as I should have. There's times when I've been on a real health kick and cut out drink and cut out this and that, but I've been just as guilty as most people of doing the exercise and then not taking in the right things. But it's something I really want to focus on. I've mentioned previously as well, I was a little bit poorly before Christmas with my gallbladder, and all that's probably from an unhealthy lifestyle I used to live, and I lost weight through that again, and I put it back on, like I say, probably by sort of enjoying sort of time at home a little bit too much at times. But there has been a purpose to that as well, there's been a purpose in the fact that I've tried to keep myself busy, tried to keep myself entertained. I had a good time with Kay at the weekend. So what I'm trying to get to basically is sometimes it's about not overcomplicating things. If you fancy something nice, there's nothing wrong in having it. If you want to make changes, then you really need to make that choice. I like to say, I like to use the word changing habits rather than saying I'm going to diet. I actually watched a program last night. It was about mental health of a famous person. Really good, actually, about Tony Slattery. He was quite famous in the 80s. Most people probably won't know him, but he was talking to somebody, and the program was Horizons on BBC Two, if anybody wants to catch it up. But he was talking to somebody, and the lady who was speaking to the expert said that what we've got to do when we want to change is do things rather than think them. And I think that's what I've been trying to say all along with the exercise. We've got to go and do the exercise, and then all the benefits come off the back of that. Whereas it's what I'm saying about the diet, rather than just think I'm going to do this. And that's what a diet is all the time. You're thinking, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Whereas if you actually make the change, it's quite easy. At the time, I found that change a little bit easier because I was living on my own. I only actually bought the food I was going to eat for the day and cut out all the snacks and all the things that we sort of overindulge in. So it was my way of sort of making that change, and then the running came. And what happened with the running is and this is where it relates into the questions I'm going to try and answer. What happens is you tend to change your habits, adjust your habits to suit. Like I said, I've not been perfect for all that time, but my one treat a week when I was trying to lose weight initially was to have a curry at the weekend. It's my favourite food, so I try and do that on a Friday night. But what I then tended to do is I found park run. I used to run Monday to Friday. Curry was my treat, and then I'd kind of be okay at the weekend. I wouldn't go heavy on the changes, but I'd eat when I was hungry and when I felt like it, and I could do that, and I wasn't eating for the sake of it. But what happened was I found park run, so I was going to park run on a Saturday morning, and then I was thinking this curry's laying a bit heavy. It's not the right food to take in before a run. So I changed my treat to a bacon sandwich after park run. And eventually, as I progressed and was losing more and more weight, I realised that eating that bacon sandwich after my park run and after doing the exercise also wasn't doing me any favours in terms of what I was trying to achieve. And eventually, I cut that out and ended up having something like beans and eggs, bit bland, bit boring, bit on its own. We all love the sausage and bacon to go with it, but I find it really worked in helping me recover that bit better. And then eventually I went out for a long run on a Sunday, so it was all helping me recover and prepare. And I think that's really important. And I want to learn a lot more about nutrition and health. Like I say, apart from that period, I've not really followed the rules. I really want to. Of course, what I mentioned about being ill is going to help me recover a lot better, and it does help. I talk about injuries and things, and it's important to eat and drink the right things. Of course, it's really hot at the moment. I've just been out for a 4-mile walk, and I took a bottle of water with me. Still a little bit guilty, even though it's in my hand. Still a little bit guilty about not drinking enough. And it took me 2 miles in to have a drink, and then I kind of drank it all, and then I was thirsty before I got back. So it's important to sort of keep hydrated, whatever you do. Eating habits and your diet, sometimes it's a trial and error thing. Like I say with all these things, I'm no expert. I've got little bits I can tip. I've been reading up on it. There's little bits I can say and do, but I'm no expert. Sometimes it's about whatever works for you. You've got to sort of find out what works. And that leads me nicely into the first question. The first question was from Simon M, because there's another question from Simon, who basically asked, should you eat breakfast before an early run or after? Well, in all honesty, it depends how far you're running. Personally, I can get up and go out for a run, and I can't really stomach much to eat or drink, as long as I'm well hydrated from the night before and taking small bits on before I go out. I'm quite comfortable going out for a run. That's only advisable, really, though, if you're doing something like a park run, a 5K. Anything over 30 minutes, you should really be taking water before and during, if you're going over that 30 minutes. What you can do, you can go out, and there is some theories out there where if you run on an empty stomach, you actually burn more calories. There's theories to sort of contradict that as well. So it's about, again, reading up and seeing what works for you. The answer, should you eat before breakfast? For some of us, that means getting up really early. If you want a full breakfast, that's going to mean you need to be up for 90 minutes. And that's not realistic for most of us. They do say you can get up and go back to sleep in that 90 minutes. But realistically, is that really going to happen for many of us? We've got busy lives, and taking an hour and a half out that way. So what you might do if you run before breakfast, if your stomach takes it, if you can take it, you might eat a banana or a slice of toast, maybe 30-40 minutes before. Like I say, it's important to sip water. I'm a little bit guilty of not taking that. I go out, if I run early, my stomach feels a bit heavy. And again, we spoke in previous weeks about it taking too much on and the negative effect of what can happen whilst we're out. So things like if you do decide you're going to eat, you want to be looking at porridge, carbohydrate food, slow burning food, porridge, pancakes, scrambled eggs, that kind of thing. Things that you get into your system and you can sort of build energy off. If you do decide to go out without eating, one of the things you can do, and this is what I learned quite early on, and this is where I was talking about the beans and scrambled egg I used to eat rather than the bacon sandwich. One of the things that I learned a long time ago was not to go straight to the fridge as soon as I got in for a run. We all feel like we've earned it and we've deserved something to eat and we deserve something fatty and greasy, and like I said, I've been guilty of it many times. But somebody told me a long time ago was just give yourself half an hour. Of course, you need plenty of fluid. You need to sort of get things back into your system, start helping your body recover and pick yourself up again. But if you are going to eat, the best thing to do is almost leave it a little bit of time so your brain doesn't. Your body gets time to settle down again. Whilst you're exercising, it's telling you want all this food, it's telling you want all this. And for 30-40 minutes after, it's also telling you that. So if you can sort of allow yourself to cool down, perhaps have a shower, perhaps sort yourself out in whatever you've got to do, and then think about breakfast or food for the day or some sort of refueling, it's worth just giving yourself that bit of time. And it's like that thing, when you get hungry, you might just attack the fridge and you might eat too much and then you feel too full. And it's the same sort of thing, whereas if you allow yourself your body to calm down a little bit, it stops telling you it's so hungry, and you might just eat within reason and eat the right foods. The right foods to recover obviously would be proteins and sort of salmon, maybe, that kind of thing, beans, all things that are going to give you that extra energy. Of course, there's so much that can be said about nutrition, and like I touched on, it's about keeping it simple. We all know the right among foods to eat: fruit and veg, before, proteins to sort of replenish yourself. It's not, there's a lot of science behind it, but we all know the sort of basic rule of thumb. And for the people I'm speaking to and the people I'm trying to advise, I think it's kind of key that we remember that most of us are not athletes. Most of us won't have a full diet plan. Of course, we can help ourselves. We can help ourselves with what we do. And if you want to get serious, there's things to look into. There's lots out there. There's lots of different theories all the time. I remember watching a program about Brandon Foster, the guy who created the Great Run and won medals at the Olympics. They ask him what he had before a long run in the morning, and he says basically he'd eat 2 slices of toast and have a glass of water, and then he'd go out for a run and he'd come back and he'd have a shandy, a lemonade shandy. And that was at a different time. Things have developed since then, but it didn't do him any harm, and some of his records still stand. So I think sometimes it's just about really what works for you and what it is. If you need more advice on losing weight and things like that, of course there's experts and there's Weight Watchers and there's plans you can follow. But like I say, we all know, and in terms of running, it's just about not overcomplicating it. Simon L also asked about what to eat after a run. I've touched on it there. It's almost about sort of getting those proteins back in, taking on that water. That's really important, particularly when it's hot. Really hot at the moment, and the last thing we want to do is dehydrate, because sort of it'll affect our livers and our body, and we'll start sort of shutting down without realizing it. So you've got to get all that sort of back in, the protein into your muscles and help your muscles repair. And that, like I say, there's lots to that. There's programs out there now. Recently, I watched a program called Game Changers on Netflix, which is really, really interesting. Of course, there's new ideas about, there's people who've gone vegan, that whether that works for them, it's up to them. And that's what Game Changers is about, to be honest. And I watched it and I really enjoyed the program. And there's lots in there about what meats and what we shouldn't. But what we have to remember all the time is it's it's often someone's opinion. There's lots of places to go and look for this. There's lots of things to, there's lots of opinions, and sometimes it's about making your mind up about what works for you. You know, we all react differently. Our bodies are different. I say this on many of the questions. You know, we're all different, and intake, unfortunately, is one of those things that we can't actually sort of pinpoint. You know, I'm just looking the next thing, and it kind of ties in as well, is Dawn asked about getting stitched. She often gets stitched. Normally kicks in at about 1 mile. I've been doing a bit of looking into this, and I did know anyway that there's actually no known cause for stitch, which makes it tricky to understand exactly what to do about it. There are some things you can do, but before that, some of the most common theories about why we get stitched. Some people think it's because of a decrease in the diaphragm. You know, can be the main cause when we're exercising. Can be the main cause. Another is possibly that it's your ligaments and the membrane. I'm just taking this off the screen, to be honest. A tugging, which is causing a tightness in this area. So yeah, and then there's a theory that it could be related to your spinal column as well. So there's many ideas of why it could be out there, but there are some ways you can avoid it. And again, a lot of it revolves around food and what you take. You know, stay hydrated. You know, drink plenty of water in 12 hours in the 12 hours build up to exercise, particularly in the heat. You know, you want to sort of, I touched on it previously, you want to drink lots. I've got some stats actually. So basically what they say with water and keeping hydrated, if you're, for example, if you're 200 pounds, which is quite big, but it's quite an easy sum to make, you should be taking in half of that in ounces a day. So you're taking 100 ounces of water, and that's kind of the recommended intake of water. Again, it's something that doesn't quite, there's no one size fits all, but that's the kind of average of what people should do. So just to give you the same example but a different way, someone who's 150 pounds might take in 75 ounces of water, you know, and that's kind of the average intake, what we should be doing. So it's just something to bear in mind. I'm going to look at that and look how my intake sort of stacks up to that. I have been trying a lot more this week, obviously with the heat and with the thought of trying to lose a bit of weight again. I've been looking at what I'm taking in. So I'm going to try and use that. Perhaps I'll speak about that further down the line, whether that's a lot or a little. To be honest, I don't know how much 100 ounces is, you know, or whatever weight I am compared to that. So yeah, and all these things that, again, with the stitch, just like the intake of food, it's about a balanced diet. You know, for somebody who's exercising regular, there's recommendations out there that we should be having sort of 55% carbs. You know, we all know how important carbs are for before exercise, and getting a good sort of whole grain meal and lots of fruit and veg insiders and those kind of things. And then sort of 25% protein a day, you know, 25% of your food, and then about 15 to 20% of unsaturated fats. And then anything around that is obviously luxury and bonus, which we do need. You know, there's reasons we eat these things. But yeah, if we can kind of work off that rule of thumb each day, then we're living a pretty balanced diet. And of course, it goes around saying 5 a day or 7 a day as it's become now. As many of those as you can take. I try to sort of drink fruit juice for breakfast, and when I'm in this kind of health kit, cut out some of the fattier breakfast foods and substitute them for fruit or yogurts, low fat yogurts. You know, they're always great, and obviously cereal. Of course, there's dairy in these things, which can be unhealthy, and if you are vegan, you might look for alternatives. But there's things there to sort of consider. You know, like I say, I'm no expert on food, and I'm not a dietitian, and just like any of these subjects, to be honest. But there are little things you can go out there, and like I say, the purpose of these sessions really are just just for little snippets of information. We all need reminding from time to time what works and what doesn't, and what we can look at and what we can't. It's what it's all about. It's just listening to that advice given. It's hard sometimes to listen to advice. I've been talking a lot recently about the sort of mental health thing and talking about how people react to deal with things, and it's really important to listen as well. This week I've not been feeling great, to be honest, and I've got to sort of put myself out there and do this, which I love doing. I absolutely love doing it. It takes my mind off things. So if I can just pass on little snippets of information, then I think, why wouldn't I? I'm sure people would find other information, but like I say, that's the nature of particularly this subject. I've got some other questions to answer, which were fired at me. I can't thank people enough for sending them across. I'll answer them possibly next week and look to sort of. It was nice today because we could sort of club all that together and talk about one subject in particular. I'm looking forward to getting back to a Friday morning, going for a walk again, somewhere different. Really looking forward to it. I've been really enjoying getting out in Nottingham and getting somewhere different. All these places I know, quite fond of, and enjoy walking around. But just because life gets in the way, I've not had the chance to get there. They do me the world of good, getting up early. I get a chance to sort of think about what's what and what I'm doing, and plan for the weekend. We're all affected by the situation. I've just seen very briefly there's some slight changes to the rules. So whatever we do, please adhere to whatever the rules are. We've got to stay on top of the situation. We've got to stay strong, stay active and really stay positive. It's easy to slip into that, and when people are saying, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. Unless you want to do it, then it's not really going to work. You've got to embrace all these new things, embrace advice, embrace what people are saying. It's easy sometimes to sort of slip into a feeling and forget that other people are struggling as well, So as much as I've said we've got to be in a great frame of mind to help others, we've also got to consider others when we're not in a great frame of mind. It works both ways, so we've got to sort of just look after yourself. And hopefully all these little things, all these little bits of advice along the way, I keep saying to you, I'm not the most articulate, I'm not the most, I'm not used to talking on a camera for a start, and I'm not used to talking sort of so openly about some of these subjects, but I'm prepared to put myself out there, and do what I can. And if you can take anything from it, please do. Please take it forward. If you can look after your health, that's all we want. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm looking, hopefully I'll be in a much more positive frame of mind. I'll wake up feeling great, get out, and then look forward to the weekend again and what we're going to do on the Saturday selfie. So for now, guys, take care. I'll see you soon, and just doing it.